The road into Ashwood Village was narrow, winding, and cloaked in mist. Daniel Carr, a 29-year-old journalist for a regional paper, drove with both hands tied on the wheel, his headlights cutting pale beams through the fog. He had come chasing a story, a legend whispered in hushed tones about an old woman who lived alone at the very edge of town. He first heard about her while researching forgotten folklore for a Halloween feature. The villagers, his sources said, avoided her house entirely. Children dared each other to run up the hill and touch her gate, but none ever lingered. Some said she was a witch. Others claimed she had made a deal with the devil. And a few swore she was already dead, her body walking only because something else moved it. Daniel didn't believe in such things, but he knew fear made good stories. The village itself was quaint, almost picturesque. Small shops with peeling paint, cottages with ivy climbing their stone walls. Yet when Daniel asked about the woman, faces turned cold. Shopkeepers pretended not to hear him. Old men muttered, "Best stay away, boy." Even the bartender at the local inn gave him only a single warning. "You go near her house, don't expect anyone to come looking for you." That only fed Daniel's determination. By dusk, he had made his way to the path leading up the hill. The air grew colder, heavier, as though the mist itself thickened to keep him out. The path was little more than dirt and weeds, winding upward between gnarled trees. Birds no longer sang here. And then he saw it. The house sat alone at the crest of the hill, its roof sagging, its windows dark and staring. The wood was gray with age, eaten by time, but somehow the structure still stood, clinging to the earth like a stubborn root. A crooked fence, half collapsed, encircled the yard. As Daniel approached, he felt something strange, a weight pressing down on him. Not fear exactly, but a heaviness, like unseen eyes were on him. He stopped at the rusted gate. It squealed when he touched it, the sound sharp enough to echo into the silence around him. The house loomed above, patient, waiting. And just as he told himself it was only a building, only rotten wood and stone, a figure moved at the window. A pale face, framed with long white hair, stared down at him. It didn't flinch. It didn't blink. It simply watched, as if it had always known he would come. Daniel's chest tightened. For the first time he wondered if the villagers were right. Maybe he should have stayed away. Daniel stood frozen at the gate, staring at the pale face framed in the window. For several long seconds it didn't move. He could almost convince himself it wasn't a person at all, just a curtain, a trick of the fading light. But then the figure tilted its head slightly, the way a bird might when it studies something it doesn't quite understand. His heart thudded painfully in his chest. He raised a hand in a nervous gesture, half wave, half apology. The face did not respond. "Hello?" he called, his voice unsteady. I'm a journalist. I just wanted to ask you a few questions." The only answer was silence. A cold breeze pushed through the trees, rattling the branches. For a moment he thought she might vanish, but instead the curtain shifted and the pale face disappeared from view. A heartbeat later, the front door creaked open. Daniel hesitated. Every instinct told him to turn back, to walk down the hill and never return. But curiosity, that dangerous spark, pulled him forward. The old woman stood in the doorway. She was smaller than he expected, her frame thin and frail, shoulders curved under the weight of age. Her hair was long, gray-white, hanging loose down her back, but her eyes, sunken, ringed with shadows, were sharper than any he had ever seen. "You shouldn't have come here," she said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried.
Daniel forced a smile. "I mean no harm. I heard stories about you. I wanted to hear your side of it." She stared at him for a long moment, unblinking. Then, without another word, she turned and shuffled back into the house, leaving the door open behind her. It was not an invitation, not exactly, but Daniel took it as one. Inside, the air was stale and heavy, thick with the smell of herbs and smoke. The furniture was old, worn, covered in dust, but not neglect. Every surface seemed to have been touched 100 times, like the grooves of a life carved deep into the wood. Shelves lined the walls, cluttered with jars of dried plants, bones, and objects he couldn't identify. Symbols were etched into the wood near the ceiling, circles, crosses, marks that looked older than the house itself. The woman moved slowly to a chair by the fireplace and sat. Her movements were deliberate, her hands trembling slightly as though with exhaustion. "You're looking for stories," she said. "Not a question." Daniel nodded, pulling out his notebook. "Yes, about you. About this place." Her lips twitched, not into a smile, but into something colder. "Stories are dangerous. People don't always understand them. And what they don't understand, they fear." She leaned closer, her eyes glinting in the firelight. "I am not the one they should fear." Daniel swallowed hard. Then who should they fear? The woman looked toward the back of the house, to a hallway swallowed in darkness. Her expression tightened, and for a moment Daniel thought he saw real fear in her eyes. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "The thing that waits behind the door."
The old woman's words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and suffocating. Daniel glanced down the hallway she had gestured toward. It stretched into shadow, the faint glow of the fireplace unable to reach its end. "The thing behind the door?" Daniel asked cautiously. She did not answer right away. Her hands, thin and veined, moved slowly across her lap, as though she were stroking something invisible. Finally, she said, "You hear them in the village, don't you? The whispers, the warnings. They think I am the danger, that I keep something foul, something wicked in this house." Daniel leaned forward. "Is it true?" Her eyes cut to him sharply, colder now, harder. "It is true enough, but what they don't understand is that I am not its master." For a moment, the only sound was the crackle of the fire. Then, almost reluctantly, she added, "I am its jailer." Daniel felt a shiver run through him. He tried to keep his tone steady. "What is it? A spirit? A demon?" The old woman's gaze returned to the hallway, and her voice dropped into a hoarse whisper. "Names give things power. Do not ask its name." Daniel scribbled in his notebook, though his hand trembled. He wasn't sure if it was the weight of her words or the air in the room. It felt thicker here, harder to breathe. His eyes wandered again to the hallway, and for the briefest second, he thought he saw something move, a flicker of shadow, darker than the dark itself. He swallowed. "May I see it? The door, I mean." The old woman turned sharply, her frail body snapping with surprising speed. "No." Her voice cracked like a whip, loud enough to make Daniel flinch. The fire popped, sending sparks into the air. For a long moment she stared at him with burning eyes, her frail frame trembling. Then she whispered, You must never open that door. Do you understand? No matter what you hear, no matter what it promises." Daniel nodded quickly, but part of him burned with curiosity, the kind of curiosity that had brought him here in the first place. The woman leaned back into her chair, suddenly looking exhausted, as though the burst of anger had drained her. Her gaze softened, though fear still lingered at the edges. "You are young, foolish. You think the world is only stories, but some stories are cages, and cages must not be broken." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the shutters. The house groaned, as if alive, as if listening. And from deep in the hallway, beyond the shadows, came a faint sound. 3 slow knocks. Daniel froze. The old woman closed her eyes. Her lips moved silently, whispering words that didn't sound like any prayer he had ever heard. And the knocking stopped.
That night, Daniel stayed in the old woman's house. She hadn't offered him a bed, but she hadn't sent him away either. He lay on a thin cot near the fireplace, his recorder at his side, his notebook filled with strange phrases he barely understood. The fire burned low, shadows stretching long and crooked across the walls. He told himself he would sleep, but his mind refused. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard the echo of those 3 knocks. Sometime after midnight, the house shifted. Not the groan of settling wood, no, something deeper. A vibration that seemed to run through the floorboards into his bones. Daniel sat up, heart hammering. And then he heard it. A whisper. At first, he thought it was the old woman speaking in her sleep, but as his ears strained, he realized the sound wasn't coming from her chair. It was coming from the hallway, from behind the forbidden door. The whisper grew clearer the longer he listened. A voice, low and coaxing, weaving words into his mind. It didn't sound monstrous, it sounded gentle, almost human. "Daniel, let me out! Please! I've been trapped so long! I can tell you things, show you things no one else knows!" His blood ran cold. He hadn't told the old woman his name. Daniel scrambled to his feet, staring into the darkness of the hallway. His every instinct screamed to stay by the fire, but his legs carried him forward, one step, then another. The whisper curled through the air like smoke, wrapping around him, urging him closer. "Daniel!" His hand hovered inches from the doorframe when a sudden voice cut through the dark. "Don't listen!" The old woman was standing now, her frail body trembling, eyes wide with terror. In her hand she clutched a bundle of dried herbs, muttering words that burned the air with their sharpness. The whisper fell silent. The house exhaled, as though disappointed. Daniel stumbled back, his chest heaving. It knew my name," he stammered. The woman's face was pale, her lips pressed tight. "It knows many things. It will say anything to be free. You must not believe it." She shuffled closer, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. Her voice cracked with desperation. "You don't understand. If that door opens, the world outside will never be the same." Daniel looked past her, into the black hallway where silence now reigned. For the first time, a sliver of doubt pierced through his curiosity. But deep inside, another voice whispered, a thought he could not shake. What if she was lying? What if the real prisoner was her? The rest of the night stretched long and sleepless. Daniel sat by the dying fire, every nerve alert,
while the old woman kept to herself, whispering over bundles of herbs, her lips moving in patterns he couldn't follow. From time to time, she threw sharp glances at the hallway, as though daring it to stir. By morning, pale light leaked through the crooked shutters. Daniel's nerves were raw, his mind buzzing with questions. He needed answers, real ones, not fragments of riddles. When the old woman brought him a chipped cup of tea, he spoke bluntly. "You're hiding something. All the villagers think you're dangerous. But last night, that voice, it didn't sound evil. It sounded trapped, lonely. Maybe you're the one who's keeping it prisoner." Her hands shook so violently the tea sloshed over the rim. She set the cup down hard on the table, glaring at him with burning eyes. "You think I enjoy this life?" she rasped. "Do you think I'd choose to sit in this rotting house while the world forgets my name, while children call me witch?" Daniel hesitated. She leaned closer, her voice dropping into a whisper that carried more weight than any shout. "I was chosen. Long before you were born, long before your precious paper ever printed its first lie, something ancient lives here. Older than the stones, older than the village. My mother held it, her mother before her, and now me." Her eyes glistened with something that wasn't anger, but despair. "I am its jailer, Daniel. I am the lock. Every night it calls, and every night I answer, not with kindness, but with chains. My voice keeps it bound, my life keeps it weak. Do you understand now why I live alone? Why I cannot leave?" Daniel's throat was dry. He wanted to argue, to call it superstition, madness, but the memory of that voice whispering his name made his stomach knot. The old woman's shoulders sagged, her frail frame trembling with exhaustion. "But I am dying. The herbs grow weaker, my voice grows thin. The cage cracks, and soon there will be no one to hold it back." She reached across the table, her bony fingers clutching his hand with desperate strength. "That is why you must leave. Tonight. Forget your story. Forget me. If you stay, it will use you." Daniel pulled his hand free, heart pounding. Part of him wanted to believe her, but another part, the reckless part, couldn't ignore the thought gnawing at him. What if she wasn't guarding a monster? What if she was guarding the truth? His gaze drifted again to the hallway, where the forbidden door waited in silence. And for the first time, he thought he saw it shift. Just barely. Night fell quickly, swallowing the hill in shadows. The air grew colder than before, so cold Daniel's breath fogged in the lamplight. The old woman lit every candle she owned, their flames flickering wildly as though the air itself was restless. She sat hunched in her chair, chanting in a voice rough and cracked, clutching her bundles of herbs as though they were weapons. Daniel paced the floor, unable to sit still, his nerves stretched to breaking. Then the sound came again. 3 knocks, slow, heavy. But this time, the old woman's chanting faltered. Her voice broke. Her hands shook so violently the herbs slipped from her fingers. Daniel froze as she let out a low, broken sob. "It's stronger now. I can't hold it much longer." And then the voice came. "Daniel, please, she's lied to you all along. I'm not the monster, she is. She keeps me here, chained, because I know her secrets. I can tell you everything if you open the door." Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. The voice wasn't harsh, wasn't monstrous. It was soft, pleading, almost human. The old woman staggered to her feet, eyes blazing with terror. "Don't listen. It twists truth into lies. That's how it feeds. Please don't." But Daniel couldn't stop himself. His legs carried him down the hallway, each step heavier than the last. The air grew thick, pressing against him. Behind him, the old woman screamed, her voice raw, but her words seemed to fade beneath the steady pull of the whisper. His hand touched the doorknob. Ice shot up his arm. The wood pulsed under his palm, beating like a heart. "Free me, Daniel. It's the only way," the voice whispered. The old woman's frail body slammed into him, pulling at his arm with surprising strength. Her eyes were wide, wet with tears. "Don't. You don't understand. If you open it, the world ends with you." Daniel hesitated, caught between her trembling desperation and the sweet, beckoning voice from behind the door. And then he turned the knob. The door burst open with a force that hurled the old woman backward. Darkness spilled out, not the absence of light, but a living shadow, thick and writhing, filling the hallway with its choking weight. It rushed past him like smoke, like claws, like laughter. The old woman's scream cut the air. "I kept it in. Now it's free." Daniel staggered, his eyes wide, as the shadow towered over him, stretching into the shape of something ancient, something formless and endless. Its voice was no longer gentle, but vast, echoing from everywhere at once. "Thank you, Daniel." The candles blew out. The house groaned. And in the last moment, before everything was swallowed in black, Daniel realized the villagers had been wrong. The old woman had never been the monster. She had been the last barrier holding it back.